A choice between duty and compassion. The alarm clock screamed at 6:15 a.m., dragging Rachel Torres from restless sleep. She reached across the worn nightstand, silencing the noise before it could wake Tyler. Her 9-year-old son needed every minute of rest, especially with his breathing treatments keeping him up late the night before. Rachel lay still for just a moment, calculating the morning's tight schedule in her head. Get Tyler ready, prepare his inhaler and medications, drop him at Mrs. Kim's house, catch the crosstown bus, and arrive at Horizon Tech Industries by 8 a.m. sharp. Her supervisor Kevin Bradford had already written her up twice this month for tardiness. The first time, Tyler's school nurse had called about an asthma attack. The second time, the bus had broken down in traffic. Kevin didn't care about reasons. He cared about punctuality, productivity, and making examples of people who didn't meet his standards. Racing against the clock. Rachel moved through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. She laid out Tyler's school clothes, prepared his breakfast, and double-checked his medication bag. By 7:20 a.m., they were out the door, walking the 3 blocks to Mrs. Kim's apartment. The elderly Korean woman had been a blessing, offering affordable childcare and genuine affection for Tyler. His inhaler is in the blue pouch, Rachel reminded Mrs. Kim, handing over Tyler's backpack. And he has a math test today, so maybe review flashcards after homework. Mrs. Kim smiled warmly, patting Rachel's hand. Don't worry so much. Tyler and I will be just fine. You go to work now. Rachel kissed Tyler's forehead and hurried toward the bus stop. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of coffee from the corner cafe and exhaust from rush hour traffic. She checked her phone nervously. 7:35 a.m. If the bus arrived on time, she would make it with 10 minutes to spare. The stranger in need. The bus rumbled to her stop at exactly 7:38 a.m. Rachel climbed aboard, found a seat near the middle, and tried to calm her racing thoughts. Horizon Tech had been a decent job for the past 14 months. The pay covered rent, groceries, and Tyler's medical expenses with a little left over. She couldn't afford to lose this position. As the bus lurched forward, Rachel noticed they were taking a detour. A traffic accident had closed 2 blocks of Madison Avenue. Her stomach dropped. The detour would add at least 15 minutes to her commute. She got off at the nearest stop to Horizon Tech, deciding to walk the remaining 6 blocks. Her low heels clicked rapidly against the sidewalk as she power-walked past boutiques and coffee shops. 7:52 a.m. She might still make it if she hurried. That's when she saw him. A moment of decision. A man in an expensive navy suit lay sprawled on the concrete outside the bank building. His leather briefcase had burst open, scattering papers across the wet sidewalk. A bicycle messenger was speeding away around the corner, not even looking back. The man groaned, trying to push himself upright, then collapsed again with a sharp cry of pain. People streamed past him. A woman in yoga clothes glanced down, then kept walking. 2 businessmen talking on phones stepped carefully around him. A teenager with headphones didn't even notice. Rachel stopped walking. She looked at her phone. 7:54 a.m. 6 minutes to clock in. The office was still 4 blocks away. The man on the ground attempted to stand again, his face contorted with agony. His left ankle bent at an unnatural angle. Rachel closed her eyes briefly, knowing what her choice would cost her. Then she knelt beside the stranger. An unexpected connection. "Sir, please don't try to move," Rachel said gently, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "I think your ankle is broken." The man turned his head toward her. He was probably in his early 40s, with dark hair graying at the temples and striking green eyes that were currently clouded with pain. Despite his obvious injury, he carried himself with a certain dignity. "I'm fine," he insisted, though his trembling hands and pale face told a different story. "I have a board meeting. I can't miss it." Rachel almost laughed at the irony. I understand about important meetings, but you need medical help. I'm calling an ambulance. Please don't, the man said, his voice tight. I can manage. I just need to get to my office. You can't even stand, Rachel pointed out, already dialing 911. As she spoke with the dispatcher, she began gathering the scattered papers and documents. That's when she noticed the letterhead printed on several sheets. Horizon Tech Industries. And the name embossed in silver at the top of each page, James Donovan, Chief Executive Officer. Rachel's hands froze. She looked at the injured man with new understanding. You're James Donovan, the CEO of Horizon Tech. He nodded wearily. Guilty as charged. And you are? Rachel Torres. I work in your company's administrative division. The cost of kindness. Something shifted in James Donovan's expression, a flicker of interest breaking through the pain. You work for me, and you stop to help even though it makes you late? Anyone would have done the same, Rachel said, though they both knew that wasn't true. They had both watched person after person walk past. The ambulance arrived with flashing lights and efficient paramedics. They confirmed Rachel's assessment of a broken ankle and began preparing James for transport. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, he caught Rachel's wrist. Thank you, he said quietly. Most people wouldn't have sacrificed their time for a stranger. Rachel nodded, anxiety already building in her chest. It was now 8:17 a.m. She was officially late, and Kevin Bradford would be waiting. I hope you feel better soon, Mr. Donovan, she said. James, he corrected. Would you mind riding with me to the hospital? Just until they get me settled. I honestly hate hospitals, and it would help to have a friendly face. Rachel hesitated for only a second. She was already late. Another hour wouldn't make much difference to the inevitable outcome. Of course, she agreed, climbing into the ambulance. Facing the consequences. At City General Hospital, Rachel stayed with James through intake, X-rays, and the initial consultation. His ankle required a cast but no surgery. While nurses worked on his leg, he asked Rachel about herself. Where did she live? How long had she worked at Horizon Tech? Did she enjoy her role? She found herself answering honestly, mentioning Tyler and the challenges of single parenthood, her community college degree, and her hope to eventually move into operations management. James listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that made her feel truly heard. It was strange, sitting in a hospital room having a real conversation with the CEO of the company that employed 3,000 people. By the time James was discharged with crutches and pain medication, it was nearly 11 a.m. Rachel helped him contact his personal assistant and arrange transportation. Then she steeled herself for what came next. I need to get to the office, she told James. Even though I'm sure I no longer have a position there. James frowned. What do you mean? My supervisor is very strict about punctuality. This is my third late arrival. Because you were helping me, James said, his voice taking on an edge. That's not just unreasonable. That's unconscionable. Rachel shrugged, trying to maintain her composure. It's company policy. 3 tardies equal termination. I knew the rules. We'll see about that, James muttered, but Rachel was already heading for the exit. The final verdict. When Rachel finally reached Horizon Tech at 11:30 a.m., Kevin Bradford was waiting at her desk, arms crossed and face thunderous. Other employees pretended to work while obviously listening. My office. Now, Kevin snapped. Inside his cramped office, he didn't offer her a seat. This is your third documented tardiness, Rachel. I've already processed your termination paperwork. There was an emergency, Rachel began. Someone was injured and needed help. I don't care if the president himself needed help, Kevin interrupted coldly. Rules are rules. Single mothers always have excuses. Always some crisis. I run a department, not a charity service. The dismissal in his tone, the casual cruelty toward her situation, ignited something in Rachel. I helped an injured person who couldn't stand. That's not an excuse. That's basic human decency. And basic human decency doesn't pay the bills or meet deadlines, Kevin retorted. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you out. 20 minutes later, Rachel walked out of Horizon Tech Industries carrying a small cardboard box with her few personal items. A framed photo of Tyler. A coffee mug he had painted in art class. A small succulent plant that somehow survived on her desk. She rode the bus home in a daze, her mind racing through financial calculations. Her emergency savings would last maybe 5 weeks. Tyler's medication refill was due in 2 weeks. Rent was due in 12 days. What Rachel didn't know as she unlocked her apartment door was that James Donovan had just returned to his office, furious about her termination and determined to make things right. And what she couldn't imagine was that helping a stranger on the street would ultimately transform her entire life in ways she never dreamed possible. An unexpected phone call. Rachel spent the rest of that devastating afternoon in a fog of worry and practical planning. She updated her resume, contacted 3 employment agencies, and applied to 7 administrative positions online. None offered the salary or benefits that Horizon Tech had provided. As she worked, Tyler played quietly in his room, sensing his mother's stress even though she tried to hide it. By evening, Rachel had composed herself enough to make dinner and help Tyler with his homework. She didn't mention losing her job yet. There would be time enough for that conversation when she had a plan in place. The next morning, Rachel woke to her phone ringing. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Hello? Ms. Torres? This is Linda Perry, executive assistant to James Donovan at Horizon Tech Industries. Mr. Donovan would like to meet with you this afternoon at 2 p.m. Would that be convenient? Rachel sat up straight, her heart pounding. Meet with me? About what? Linda's voice was professionally warm. Mr. Donovan didn't share the specifics, but he was quite insistent about scheduling this meeting as soon as possible. Can I confirm you for 2 p.m.? Rachel's mind raced through possibilities. Was this about yesterday's incident? Had she somehow violated protocol by riding in the ambulance? Or perhaps James wanted to personally explain why company policy prevented him from overriding her termination. Yes, Rachel heard herself say. 2 p.m. works fine. Return to Horizon Tech. Rachel arrived at Horizon Tech 15 minutes early, dressed in her best interview suit. The security guard, Antonio, greeted her with surprise. Rachel. I heard what happened yesterday. That Bradford guy is a real piece of work. He typed on his computer. You're cleared to go up to the executive floor. Top level, suite 4000. The executive floor. Rachel had never been above the 12th floor where the administrative offices were located. The elevator rose smoothly to the 40th floor, opening into a reception area that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views. Modern art hung on cream-colored walls. Everything spoke of success and power. Linda Perry stood from behind an elegant desk, extending her hand. She was an attractive woman in her late 50s with short silver hair and kind eyes behind fashionable glasses. Rachel Torres, so nice to meet you. Mr. Donovan is expecting you. She led Rachel through double doors into a corner office that was even more impressive than the reception area. James Donovan sat behind a massive desk of polished walnut, his injured leg propped on a cushioned stool. He looked up from his computer and smiled warmly. Rachel, thank you for coming. Please, sit down. A surprising proposition. As Rachel settled into a leather chair, Linda brought her a glass of water before quietly withdrawing. How are you feeling? Rachel asked, nodding toward his cast. 6 weeks in this thing, according to the orthopedist. Could have been worse. James leaned forward, his expression becoming serious. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. I've reviewed the circumstances of your termination, and I'm appalled. Rachel's chest tightened. Mr. Donovan, I appreciate your concern, but I knew the attendance policy when I accepted the position. Call me James, please. And while you may have known the policy, you couldn't have known that it was meant to be applied with managerial discretion, especially in cases of documented emergencies. He pulled out a file. Kevin Bradford exceeded his authority. His comments about single parents were inappropriate and discriminatory. He's been transferred to our satellite office in Portland, effective immediately. Rachel's eyes widened. Transferred? Because of me? Because of his behavior, James corrected firmly. This isn't the first complaint against him, just the most egregious. But I didn't ask you here to discuss Kevin Bradford. He paused, studying her thoughtfully. I want to offer you a position, Rachel. But not your old job. Rachel's pulse quickened. What kind of position? Linda is retiring next month after 23 years as my executive assistant. I need someone organized, intuitive, capable of thinking on their feet, and demonstrating sound judgment under pressure. James smiled. Someone exactly like you. A life-changing decision. Rachel stared at him, certain she had misunderstood. You want me to be your executive assistant? But I don't have that kind of experience. You have administrative experience, excellent people skills, and most importantly, character. James opened a folder. Linda would train you for the next month before her retirement. The position comes with a salary that's approximately double what you were making, comprehensive health benefits with full coverage for Tyler's asthma treatments, and flexible scheduling for family emergencies. Double her previous salary. Rachel Torres. I work in your company's administrative division. The cost of kindness. Something shifted in James Donovan's expression, a flicker of interest breaking through the pain. You work for me, and you stop to help even though it makes you late? Anyone would have done the same, Rachel said, though they both knew that wasn't true. They had both watched person after person walk past. The ambulance arrived with flashing lights and efficient paramedics. They confirmed Rachel's assessment of a broken ankle and began preparing James for transport. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, he caught Rachel's wrist. Thank you, he said quietly. Most people wouldn't have sacrificed their time for a stranger. Rachel nodded, anxiety already building in her chest. It was now 8:17 a.m. She was officially late, and Kevin Bradford would be waiting. I hope you feel better soon, Mr. Donovan, she said. James, he corrected. Would you mind riding with me to the hospital? Just until they get me settled. I honestly hate hospitals, and it would help to have a friendly face. Rachel hesitated for only a second. She was already late. Another hour wouldn't make much difference to the inevitable outcome. Of course, she agreed, climbing into the ambulance. Facing the consequences. At City General Hospital, Rachel stayed with James through intake, X-rays, and the initial consultation. His ankle required a cast but no surgery. While nurses worked on his leg, he asked Rachel about herself. Where did she live? How long had she worked at Horizon Tech? Did she enjoy her role? She found herself answering honestly, mentioning Tyler and the challenges of single parenthood, her community college degree, and her hope to eventually move into operations management. James listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that made her feel truly heard. It was strange, sitting in a hospital room having a real conversation with the CEO of the company that employed 3,000 people. By the time James was discharged with crutches and pain medication, it was nearly 11 a.m. Rachel helped him contact his personal assistant and arrange transportation. Then she steeled herself for what came next. I need to get to the office, she told James. Even though I'm sure I no longer have a position there. James frowned. What do you mean? My supervisor is very strict about punctuality. This is my third late arrival. Because you were helping me, James said, his voice taking on an edge. That's not just unreasonable. That's unconscionable. Rachel shrugged, trying to maintain her composure. It's company policy. 3 tardies equal termination. I knew the rules. We'll see about that, James muttered, but Rachel was already heading for the exit. The final verdict. When Rachel finally reached Horizon Tech at 11:30 a.m., Kevin Bradford was waiting at her desk, arms crossed and face thunderous. Other employees pretended to work while obviously listening. My office. Now, Kevin snapped. Inside his cramped office, he didn't offer her a seat. This is your third documented tardiness, Rachel. I've already processed your termination paperwork. There was an emergency, Rachel began. Someone was injured and needed help. I don't care if the president himself needed help, Kevin interrupted coldly. Rules are rules. Single mothers always have excuses. Always some crisis. I run a department, not a charity service. The dismissal in his tone, the casual cruelty toward her situation, ignited something in Rachel. I helped an injured person who couldn't stand. That's not an excuse. That's basic human decency. And basic human decency doesn't pay the bills or meet deadlines, Kevin retorted. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you out. 20 minutes later, Rachel walked out of Horizon Tech Industries carrying a small cardboard box with her few personal items. A framed photo of Tyler. A coffee mug he had painted in art class. A small succulent plant that somehow survived on her desk. She rode the bus home in a daze, her mind racing through financial calculations. Her emergency savings would last maybe 5 weeks. Tyler's medication refill was due in 2 weeks. Rent was due in 12 days. What Rachel didn't know as she unlocked her apartment door was that James Donovan had just returned to his office, furious about her termination and determined to make things right. And what she couldn't imagine was that helping a stranger on the street would ultimately transform her entire life in ways she never dreamed possible. Full health coverage. The numbers seemed impossible, almost fantastical. I don't understand why you would offer me such an opportunity, Rachel said slowly. We spent a few hours together during a crisis. That's hardly enough to base a major hiring decision on. James set down the folder and met her eyes directly. In those few hours, you showed me more integrity than I've seen in countless interviews and employee evaluations. You sacrificed something important to help a stranger. That matters, Rachel. Character matters. He continued, beyond the assistant role, I have another proposition. Horizon Tech is launching a charitable foundation focused on supporting working parents, particularly single parents, through scholarships, childcare subsidies, and professional development programs. I'd like you to serve as the foundation's program director in addition to your executive assistant duties. Rachel felt tears prickling her eyes. This opportunity was almost too perfect, addressing every challenge she faced. When would I start? She asked quietly. How does tomorrow sound? Linda is eager to begin training. A new beginning. The next 3 months transformed Rachel's life so completely that she sometimes had to remind herself it was real. Under Linda's patient mentorship, she learned the intricate dance of managing an executive schedule, coordinating with department heads, handling sensitive information, and navigating corporate politics. Linda was an excellent teacher, sharing insights from her 2 decades of experience. James is brilliant but tends to overbook himself, she explained during their second week. Your job is to protect his time and energy. Don't be afraid to say no on his behalf. Rachel proved to be a quick study. She developed systems for prioritizing tasks, created detailed briefing documents for James's meetings, and built relationships with key players throughout Horizon Tech department heads who had never acknowledged her existence as a low-level administrator now sought her input and approval. The foundation work ignited a passion Rachel hadn't known she possessed. She researched best practices for family support programs, interviewed single parents about their needs, and drafted proposals for scholarship criteria. James involved her in every decision, genuinely valuing her perspective. Her life outside work improved dramatically too. The substantial raise allowed Rachel to move from her cramped apartment to a bright two-bedroom condo in a building with actual amenities. Tyler had his own room for the first time, space for his growing collection of science books and building projects. The neighborhood had better schools, and Tyler thrived. Mrs. Kim continued providing after-school care, now with generous compensation that allowed the elderly woman to reduce her other clients and focus more attention on Tyler. Growing closer. What Rachel hadn't anticipated was how much she would enjoy working with James personally. Their professional relationship evolved into genuine friendship. They developed an easy rhythm, often finishing each other's sentences in meetings. James trusted her judgment completely, and Rachel found herself contributing ideas that shaped major business decisions. James was nothing like the distant, intimidating CEO she had imagined. He was thoughtful, surprisingly funny, and deeply committed to ethical business practices. He asked about Tyler constantly, remembering details from previous conversations. When Tyler scored perfectly on his science final, James sent him a telescope with a congratulatory note. One evening, about 10 weeks into her new role, James invited Rachel to a business dinner with Gregory Walsh, a potential partner from a Silicon Valley tech firm. The meeting was at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. Rachel prepared thoroughly, reviewing Walsh's company profile and preparing talking points about Horizon Tech's expansion strategy. She chose a professional but elegant black dress, wanting to represent the company well. When the car service picked her up, James was already inside, looking sharp in a charcoal suit. His cast had been removed the previous week, though he still used a cane occasionally. "You look lovely," he said as she slid into the seat beside him. "Thank you," Rachel replied, suddenly very aware of the intimate space of the car's back seat. "I've prepared notes on Walsh's company and potential partnership terms." James smiled. "Of course you have. You're always 3 steps ahead." Unspoken feelings. The dinner with Gregory Walsh went exceptionally well. Rachel's insights about implementation timelines and integration challenges impressed the older businessman. She noticed James watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something beyond professional approval. After Walsh left, James suggested they share dessert before heading home. As they lingered over tiramisu and coffee, their conversation drifted from business to personal topics. "Tyler tells me he wants to build a robot for the science fair," James said. "Something about solar panels and motion sensors?" Rachel laughed. "He's been sketching designs for weeks. I have no idea where he gets his engineering brain. Certainly not from me." "I wouldn't be so sure about that," James said softly. "You've engineered quite a transformation in your life over these past months." Their eyes met across the table, and Rachel felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the espresso. She had been trying to ignore these feelings for weeks now, the way her pulse quickened when James smiled at her, the warmth that spread through her when his hand accidentally brushed hers while reviewing documents. This was dangerous territory. He was her boss. Getting involved could jeopardize everything she had worked so hard to build. "I should get home," Rachel said, breaking the moment. "Mrs. Kim has an early appointment tomorrow." "Of course," James agreed, but she caught a flash of disappointment in his eyes. Tyler's observation. That weekend, as Rachel helped Tyler assemble materials for his robot project, her son made an observation that startled her. "Mr. Donovan likes you, Mom." Rachel nearly dropped the circuit board she was holding. "What makes you say that?" "The way he looks at you." Like in the old pictures of you and Dad before he left. Tyler continued sorting wires, oblivious to his mother's racing heart. Plus, he asked me if I'd mind if he spent more time with you. Rachel set down the circuit board carefully. He asked you what? When he took me to the Science Museum last month, while you were at that conference. He said he cared about you a lot and wanted to know if I'd be okay with him taking you on a real date. Tyler looked up at her seriously. I told him it was fine as long as he doesn't make you cry like Dad did. And I said you like Italian food and don't like horror movies. Rachel sat down heavily on the couch, processing this information. James had discussed dating her with her 9-year-old son, but hadn't mentioned anything to her directly. When had he planned to bring it up? And why hadn't he? An unexpected complication. The following Monday, Rachel arrived at the office to find Linda looking unusually tense. Natasha Winters is here to see James, Linda said quietly. His ex-wife. She didn't have an appointment, but James agreed to see her. Rachel had learned about Natasha during her first week. The divorce had been finalized 3 years ago after Natasha accepted a partnership at a prestigious law firm in London. She had chosen career over marriage, and James had let her go. Should I reschedule his 10 a.m. with the marketing team? Rachel asked, falling back on professionalism. Already done, Linda confirmed. But Rachel, be careful. Natasha has a way of disrupting things when she returns. Rachel was reviewing foundation grant applications when James's office door opened. A stunning blonde woman in an impeccably tailored suit emerged, looking satisfied. She glanced at Rachel with barely concealed assessment before walking to the elevator. James appeared in his doorway moments later, looking troubled. Rachel, could you come in please? She followed him into his office, noticing the tension in his shoulders. Natasha is moving back from London, he said without preamble. Her firm is opening a branch here, and she's heading it up. That's quite a career move for her, Rachel said carefully. She suggested we reconsider our relationship, given the change in circumstances. James ran a hand through his hair. The geographic distance was one of our issues. With that resolved, she thinks we should try again. Rachel felt as though someone had punched her in the stomach. What did you tell her? I said I needed time to think about it. The words hung in the air between them. Rachel forced herself to nod professionally. Of course. That's a big decision. I'll give you some space to consider it. She returned to her desk, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to focus on work. Natasha Winters was everything Rachel wasn't: sophisticated, polished, from James's world of privilege and power. How could she possibly compete with that? More importantly, should she even try? The smart thing would be to step back, maintain professional boundaries, and protect the career she had worked so hard to build. But as Rachel glanced toward James's office, seeing him staring out the window with that troubled expression, she realized her feelings had grown far deeper than was wise or safe. She was falling in love with James Donovan, and now his ex-wife had returned to reclaim him. Preparing for the foundation launch. The Horizon Foundation Gala was scheduled for Friday evening, just 4 days after Natasha's unexpected visit. Rachel threw herself into the final preparations with fierce determination, using work to avoid thinking about James and his ex-wife. The event would be held at the Grand Regency Hotel downtown. 200 guests had confirmed attendance, including major donors, community partners, and Horizon Tech executives. As foundation director, Rachel would deliver the opening remarks before James gave the keynote speech. She had written and rewritten her presentation a dozen times, wanting to strike the perfect balance between personal narrative and professional vision. The foundation's programs could genuinely change lives, providing support that she wished had existed during her hardest years as a single parent. Linda helped her select a dress for the gala, a deep emerald gown that complemented Rachel's dark hair and eyes. "You'll be stunning," Linda assured her. "And your speech is powerful. You're going to move people." What Rachel couldn't share with Linda was her conflicted feelings about the evening. This should be her proudest professional moment, but it was overshadowed by uncertainty about James and where their relationship stood. She had barely spoken to him outside of necessary work conversations since Natasha's visit. James had seemed to respect her distance, though she sometimes caught him watching her with an unreadable expression. Mrs. Kim's wisdom. The evening before the gala, Rachel was pacing her living room, rehearsing her speech for the 100th time, when Mrs. Kim arrived to watch Tyler. The older woman took one look at Rachel's face and shook her head. "You're worrying about the wrong things, dear. I just want the presentation to be perfect," Rachel protested. "I'm not talking about the speech." Mrs. Kim settled onto the couch, patting the cushion beside her. "Sit down and talk to me." Rachel found herself pouring out the whole story, her growing feelings for James, Tyler's revelation about the conversation at the Science Museum, Natasha's return, and James's statement that he needed time to think. Mrs. Kim listened without interruption, her weathered hands folded in her lap. When Rachel finished, the elderly woman smiled gently. "Let me tell you something I learned in 63 years of living. Love that's meant to be doesn't need to compete. It simply exists." She squeezed Rachel's hand. "If James Donovan cares for you the way I think he does, no fancy ex-wife from London will change that. And if he doesn't, well, then he's not the right man for you or Tyler. But what if I'm just the grateful employee? What if he was just being kind because I helped him that day? Rachel Torres, you are one of the smartest women I know. Stop selling yourself short." Mrs. Kim's tone turned firm. "That man looks at you like you hung the moon. I've seen it every time he picks you up for those evening meetings. He's just trying to do things properly, respectfully, because he knows what's at stake for you." Rachel wanted to believe her, but doubt still gnawed at her confidence. The gala evening. Friday evening arrived with perfect weather. Rachel dressed carefully, applying makeup with a steady hand despite her nerves. Tyler watched from her bedroom doorway, looking grown up in the button-down shirt and slacks she had bought for special occasions. "You look really pretty, Mom," he said shyly. Rachel kissed his forehead. "Thank you, sweetie. Remember, Mrs. Kim is taking you for pizza and then you can watch that documentary about Mars rovers." "I know." Tyler hesitated. "Mom? I hope Mr. Donovan tells you tonight how he feels. He practices what to say sometimes when he thinks I'm not listening." Rachel's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "When we go to the Science Museum or when he helps me with my robot project. He talks to himself about the right way to tell you he loves you. He's nervous, just like you are." Before Rachel could respond, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Kim had arrived, bustling in with her usual efficiency and warmth. The car service picked Rachel up at 6 p.m. She expected to meet James at the venue, but was surprised when the driver pulled up to James's townhouse first. James emerged looking devastatingly handsome in a classic black tuxedo, his cane replaced by a barely noticeable limp. He slid into the car beside her, and for a moment, neither spoke. "You look absolutely beautiful," James said finally, his voice low. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." The drive to the Grand Regency was filled with last-minute logistics discussion, both of them retreating to the safety of professional topics. But Rachel was acutely aware of every accidental touch, every glance, every moment of charged silence. Confronting the past. They arrived at the hotel an hour before guests would begin arriving. The ballroom had been transformed into an elegant space with soft lighting, floral centerpieces, and Horizon Foundation banners tastefully displayed. Rachel was checking the audio-visual setup when she sensed someone approaching. She turned to find Natasha Winters standing there, looking impeccable in a silver gown. "You must be Rachel Torres," Natasha said smoothly. "James has mentioned you quite a bit." "Ms. Winters. I didn't realize you were attending tonight. James invited me personally. We've been spending quite a bit of time together this week," discussing old times and new possibilities. Natasha's smile didn't reach her eyes. He's always been drawn to charity work. It's one of the things I admired about him. Rachel felt her composure slipping but forced herself to remain professional. The foundation is important to many people who need support. Of course. It's admirable how you've used your personal circumstances to create opportunity. Natasha's tone made it sound less than admirable. James always was a sucker for a compelling story. Before Rachel could respond, James appeared at her elbow. His expression was thunderous as he looked at Natasha. "A word in private, please," he said to his ex-wife, his tone leaving no room for argument. Rachel watched them walk toward a quiet corner of the ballroom, her heart sinking. They looked right together, she had to admit. Both polished, both from the same world of wealth and influence. Tyler's blessing. Rachel retreated to the ladies' room, needing a moment to collect herself. She stared at her reflection, giving herself a stern mental pep talk. Tonight was about the foundation, about helping families who desperately needed support. Her personal feelings had to take a back seat. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, "Good luck tonight, Mom. Remember what Mrs. Kim says. You're amazing and anyone who doesn't see that is silly. Love you." Rachel smiled, her eyes misting. How had she raised such a wonderful, emotionally intelligent child? Another text arrived, this one from Mrs. Kim, "Stop hiding in the bathroom. Go show them what Rachel Torres is made of." Rachel laughed despite herself. She touched up her lipstick, straightened her shoulders, and returned to the ballroom. Guests were beginning to arrive now, filling the space with conversation and laughter. Rachel moved through the crowd with practiced grace, greeting donors and community partners. She spotted James across the room, now free of Natasha, speaking with the mayor. The speech that changed everything. At 7:30 p.m., Linda took the microphone to welcome everyone and introduce Rachel. Walking to the podium, Rachel felt surprisingly calm. This was what mattered. These programs. These families. This mission. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Torres, and I'm the program director for the Horizon Foundation." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience. 3 months ago, I was a single mother working an entry-level administrative job, struggling to pay for my son's asthma medication while juggling childcare challenges and mounting bills. I was one crisis away from disaster, just like millions of working parents across this country. She shared her story honestly, not glossing over the difficulties or the moment of choice that changed her life. She talked about the programs the foundation would offer and the research showing how targeted support could transform families' trajectories. "We're not offering charity," Rachel said firmly. "We're offering opportunity, recognition, and support for people who work hard but face systemic barriers. We're investing in parents who are investing everything they have in their children's futures." The applause when she finished was thunderous. Rachel returned to her seat, her hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. James took the podium next, delivering remarks about Horizon Tech's commitment to social responsibility. But several times during his speech, his eyes found Rachel in the audience, holding her gaze with an intensity that made her breath catch. The moment of truth. After the formal program ended, guests mingled over dinner and drinks. Rachel found herself surrounded by people wanting to discuss the foundation, share their own stories, or offer support. It was overwhelming and wonderful. She was speaking with a group of potential donors when she felt a hand on her elbow. James stood there, looking determined. "Excuse us, please," he said to the group with a polite smile. "I need to steal Rachel for a moment." He guided her through the crowd and out to the hotel's terrace, which overlooked the city lights. The evening air was cool and fresh after the warmth of the ballroom. "James, what are you doing? We have guests to attend to." "They can wait," he said firmly. "This can't." Rachel's heart began to race. "What can't wait?" James took both her hands in his green eyes serious and intent. I had a very enlightening conversation with Natasha this week. Actually, several conversations. She wanted to know if we could try again now that she's back in the city. Rachel tried to pull her hands away, not wanting to hear this, but James held firm. I told her no, Rachel. Definitively, finally, no. His voice softened. Because I'm in love with someone else. Someone brilliant, compassionate, and strong. Someone who makes me want to be better every single day. Someone who stopped on a rainy street to help a stranger and changed my entire life. Rachel felt tears pricking her eyes. James, I'm your employee. This is complicated. What if it doesn't work? I can't risk Tyler's stability or my career. I know it's complicated, James acknowledged. I've been terrified to tell you how I feel for exactly those reasons. That's why I talked to Tyler first, to make sure he'd be okay with this. And why I've been trying to find the right moment, the right words. He reached up to cup her face gently. But watching you tonight, seeing you inspire all those people, I realized there's no perfect moment. There's just the truth. And the truth is that I love you, Rachel Torres. I love your strength and your kindness. I love the way you challenge me and the way you make me laugh. I love how much you love Tyler and how you've transformed the foundation into something even better than I imagined. I love you too, Rachel whispered, tears now streaming down her face. I've been trying so hard not to, but I can't help it. James smiled, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. Then stop trying not to. Let's figure this out together. We'll set boundaries at work, be transparent with HR, whatever it takes to do this right. But please, Rachel, give us a chance. A new chapter begins. Rachel answered by kissing him, pouring months of pent-up emotion into that single moment. James pulled her closer, and for a long perfect moment, nothing else existed except the two of them and the truth they had finally spoken. When they finally pulled apart, both smiling, James kept his arms around her waist. We should probably get back to the gala, Rachel said reluctantly. Probably, James agreed, but neither of them moved. People are going to talk, Rachel warned. Let them. I'm dating the most amazing woman I've ever met. I'm fine with people knowing that. They returned to the ballroom hand in hand, and if people noticed and whispered, neither Rachel nor James cared. The foundation launch was a tremendous success, raising twice the projected amount and generating commitments from major corporate partners. Later that night, when Rachel returned home, Tyler was still awake despite Mrs. Kim's best efforts to get him to bed. So, he demanded immediately. Did Mr. Donovan finally tell you? Rachel laughed, hugging her son tight. Yes, he did. And I told him too. Are you really okay with this? Tyler rolled his eyes with the dramatic exasperation only a 9-year-old could muster. Mom, I told you weeks ago it was fine. He's nice and he's smart and he makes you happy. That's all that matters. When did you get so wise? Rachel asked, ruffling his hair. I've always been wise. You just finally noticed. 6 months later. The Horizon Foundation's first anniversary gala was even bigger than the launch event. Rachel stood at the podium, now comfortable in her role as director, announcing the expansion of programs to 3 additional cities. She had successfully navigated the challenges of dating her boss, with clear professional boundaries at work and total transparency with HR. Linda had been thrilled, claiming she knew it would happen from the first day. The company had embraced the relationship, seeing it as proof of Horizon Tech's culture of opportunity and merit. Tyler's science fair robot had won first place, earning him a spot in the regional competition. James had been there cheering louder than anyone, having become a constant presence in their lives. As Rachel looked out at the audience, she spotted James in the front row, Tyler sitting beside him. Both gave her matching thumbs up, making her smile. Her phone buzzed with a text from James, "You're amazing." Dinner at Giovanni's tonight to celebrate? Tyler says he wants the chicken parmesan. Rachel typed back, perfect. Love you both. She returned her attention to the gala, to the work that mattered, surrounded by people she loved and supported by a community she had helped build. That morning 3 months ago when she stopped to help an injured stranger, Rachel could never have imagined where that choice would lead.